The Great Depression was a massive economic downfall that caused many people to lose their jobs. This, of course, led areas to become worse off economically, as well as forcing many people to change the way they live drastically. Now, the importance of this event is not just to teach our children history, but it is also very good to avoid a problem of this manner in the future. On another note, a great thing it teaches us is how World War II actually helped our economy by booting us into gear with a strong demand for tanks and other military hardware. The timeline of the Great Depression spanned from late 1929 and ended around the early 1940s. On October 29, 1929, a nearly fatal blow to our economy was struck when the stock market crashed, a day labeled Black Tuesday. In the year 1932, a new president was elected, FDR. He was elected because of his promises to help get the country out of the Great Depression, and within 100 days, a new deal was signed. 42 new agencies, which opened to provide jobs and unemployment insurance, were put in place to help. By 1933, unemployment had risen from 3% to 25%, which obviously did not help to stimulate the economy. Franklin D. Roosevelt won an astonishing victory when he was elected president, but by Inauguration Day, March 4th, 1933, every state ordered remaining banks to close at the end of the fourth wave of banking panics. This caused the U.S. to be out of money to pay government workers. But after evidence of recovery in the spring of 1933, the economy kept improving for another 3 years. The money was finally beginning to reinflate at a rate of 9% per year until an issue hit in 1937. This was when the Federal Reserves made the decision to increase its requirements for the money reserves, which only made the Depression last longer until the end of the decade. The Great Depression was primarily caused by the events on Black Tuesday. It started off strong and got worse for a considerable amount of time. But these events were not prevented nor attempted to be stopped by a man named Herbert Hoover. This man and our president at the time did almost nothing because of his beliefs that the government should not get too much power. Although he could have prevented a lot of what happened by taking stronger action, there were other minor buildups as well, such as closing banks, other businesses shutting down, unemployment rising, and Hoover not doing his job. So it was basically all left to Franklin to pick up the shattered pieces of our economy. Deflation was a major problem throughout this event as well. Because there was less money to pay workers, this meant that they couldn't go out and spend money on things. This made the prices go down, and it also destroyed the system in which the workers got paid. This leads us to our next point. People's wages were just getting worse. The people that remained with jobs had a loss of 42% of their pay because of deflation. In our economy, areas started to become more rural, which caused less jobs, so that caused more unemployed people. These factors caused less money in the economy, which caused things to progressively get worse over time. Other nations were being affected just like the U.S. With less and less jobs available, then deflation hitting, it just got worse. Some places were hit harder than the U.S., and others were not. This just goes to show that this was a very widespread depression. The other affected countries and continents were Canada, Europe, Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, France, Asia, Japan, China, Greece, Italy, Australia, Finland, Belgium, and Spain. All of these nations were affected by the Great Depression, and all of them were industrialized or industrializing, which meant that this caused their development to suffer greatly. The stock market crash, which took place on October 29, 1929, ultimately destroyed the economy and led the U.S. and other nations into the Great Depression. This was an inevitable outcome because the stock market had been rising for almost a decade previously, so when it crashed, it was not unexpected. How quick it happened is what destroyed everything, and this caused many businesses to shut down or file for bankruptcy, and the surviving companies could barely even afford to pay their own workers. For a while, the Great Depression just seemed to be in a downward spiral with little hope of recovery. Unemployment just kept going up, causing less money to be spent, which means less businesses got money, so they couldn't pay as many workers. They had to lay them off, which again just caused the spiral to continue. Other than that, businesses were caused to close because of lack of pay, which caused less places for the economy to be stimulated, which only seemed to add to the downward spiral. Hoover's decision did not help too much either, because of his views that the government should not get too involved or have too much power. All he really did was attempt to keep the people's hopes up. He did this with some speeches, but it only worked for so long before people began to lose hope again. Herbert Hoover was born on August 10, 1874, and at that time he was the only president born west of the Mississippi River. He was a professional mining engineer and was raised as a Quaker. Hoover also worked as head of the U.S. Food Administration during World War I. He also became known very well for his humanitarian relief effort in wartime Belgium. His views were mainly that the government should not be able to involve nor have too much power in any sort. As of this, his actions during the Great Depression, that I believe I have covered most with the past paragraphs, but just to be safe, what he did was directly motivate the public and try to let it resolve itself. This was mainly because of his beliefs, but still, he could have done more to help. Then came World War II. This completely rebooted our economy because there was a strong desire and need for tanks and military hardware, which made businesses buy the material, and that in turn caused more jobs. This rise in employment allowed more people to start spending money, therefore stimulating the economy. This is how our recovery began, and it finished because our economy kept improving after the war had ended. FDR did so much more to help than Hoover that he pretty much made him look like an ant. Roosevelt was born in 1882. He was born to a primarily Dutch family from New York. He attended Groton School and Harvard. Sadly, Roosevelt was diagnosed with polio in 1921. This made his legs useless. FDR had much different views than Hoover. Instead of the government not getting too involved, he just did things. Kind of like, oh, I guess this didn't work, so let's do this. This helped a tremendous amount, and is most likely one of the reasons that he was elected not once, not twice, but 4 times. These actions went to help the Great Depression get much better, because lots of new ideas were being put into play, as well as lots of people getting their hope back. People were listening to Roosevelt, following his advice, stimulating the economy. More people were getting jobs and more businesses were opening, all because of the increase in money circulation. The banks were doing better, the economy had finally hit an upward spiral. So here we are now. Our economy is in pretty good shape, and the stock market has pretty much recovered. It hasn't gone up or down a very huge amount as of lately. This is because it fluctuates. Now, the fluctuation is most likely a good thing, so that it prevents any major crashes. The road to recovery also wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible either. Because of the newfound confidence of the people, and the economy beginning to recover more and more, people began to invest more as well. So, that caused us to get back to where we are now, and this concludes my presentation.